Hey everybody, Casey here with Life Abstract Gaming, and this week I want to give my impressions on the sequel to one of the few R-rated Marvel movies, Deadpool 2.
We getting close.
You all know the drill. Intercept the convoy. Watch out for Cable. Hit it!
The Fox Marvel movies include the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and the Wolverine solo films. With the exception of X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past, the other movies in this stable aren't looked at as quality superhero content, especially when compared to the Disney Marvel efforts. But the first Deadpool movie set itself apart by being R-rated and incredibly faithful to the character, rectifying his awful depiction in X-Men Origins Wolverine in 2009, which is still criticized today, often by Deadpool himself. It was so successful, Fox's next solo movie for Wolverine followed suit by giving Logan a green light for an R rating and mirrored similar critical acclaim, so it wasn't hard to guess that a sequel would be made and highly anticipated. At this point, I'm going to go into detail regarding the events and plot of the movie, as well as my impressions, so if you haven't seen it yet and care, you can consider this your spoiler warning. Deadpool 2 takes place almost right after the last movie. He's living his best life doing mercenary work and loving on his lady without a care in the world, until disaster strikes because, of course it does. A target he was meant to kill tracks him home and accidentally kills his girlfriend instead. This is the same woman he spends the final act of the last movie trying to rescue from the main villain, so for her to be killed off by a no-name thug immediately left a bad taste in my mouth. It's a lazy way to put Deadpool into the later situations the movie requires, and it's the start of a chain reaction of bad plot points. For example, why was there nothing done about the fact that children were being tortured at that other mutant academy after the X-Men and Deadpool show up to deal with Russell, also known as Fire Fist? Deadpool shoots a guy in the head from just a suggestion that something bad was going on, but the rest of the X-Men don't bother to ask a single question about it before or after Deadpool's actions. Why does Juggernaut agree to follow Russell after they break out of the mutant prison? I never felt like there was any compelling reason for that team up other than wanting Juggernaut to be a bad guy for the heroes to face this time around. As cool as a character as Juggernaut is, he really isn't utilized well, and that's another recurring theme with this movie. None of the new mutants introduced get any real shine or interesting narratives. Domino was great anytime she's on screen, but there's nowhere near enough of her or her history. She briefly mentions she grew up in the same bad mutant academy, but that just reinforces my questions about why it was still operating. Cable gets a lot more time than any others as a pseudo-antagonist, but his backstory is brief and bland. We're meant to care about his lost wife and daughter without first caring about him, which we don't because he's trying to murder an abused 14-year-old kid. Deadpool even asks if he's from the DC universe because he's so dark and gritty, which is hitting the nail on the head. Cable's character is a boring archetype that isn't relatable. They all just serve as people for Deadpool to bounce his brand of humor and commentary off of, and in that regard it works incredibly well. Deadpool carries the majority of this movie and routinely addresses instances of bad plot and lazy writing. While this is funny, it doesn't actually change the fact that it was still there. Deadpool himself is entertaining to watch, but the movie just wasn't. The ending even undoes two deaths that were supposed to be important to the events of the movie. Deadpool's death, which was the sacrifice that convinced Russell not to become a villain, and then Vanessa's death, which was the reason Deadpool even got involved in the rest of the story. To be fair though, he did go back and change a bunch of other scenes from other X-Men movies, which was hilarious, but whether or not the Vanessa thing counts is kind of up in the air. All in all, I had a good time watching the film, but I can't help but feel a bit disappointed by it. There was clearly a lot of money thrown at it for visuals, casting, and the soundtrack, which is probably by far the best thing about it, but actual story seemed like an afterthought. When the marketing campaign is more original and interesting than the actual movie, it's telling that the majority of the studio's attention is focused on selling you on the character rather than the movie he's in. So, what are your thoughts on Deadpool 2? Did you find it mostly disappointing, or was it exactly what you were looking for in a sequel? Let us know. We're listening.